Hello, this is Jockin, coach of the San Francisco Cinderace, and this is my battle replay for my Week 7 match against the HUntsville Haunters. The team I expected him to bring was almost exactly this, but I had thought it would be the Piloswine instead of the Togekiss, so pretty happy I'm not seeing the Piloswine because it did a lot to my team. I had ways to deal with it, but seeing Togekiss is a lot better, so let's get right into it here. I started off with Cinderace because unless something is Choice Scarfed because Noivern's not here, Cinderace is guaranteed to be the fastest thing in the battle. Gastrodon was probably his best answer in terms of that. Otherwise, I'd be clicking Pyro Ball here. I want to get out and just U-turn here, though. I don't want to take whatever he's going to do. And Vaporeon is pretty safe regardless of him being physical or special. Because a water move is pretty likely, but he ends up going for Earth Power, which is a good call. So here, I got a couple things. I definitely don't want to Scald because I know he's probably got Dry Skin and Storm Drain. So I'm just going to click Yawn. I'm going to try and put it to sleep, or whatever he switches into a sleep, and see if I can get a free turn. So we're going to Yawn. He goes for another Earth Power, does some Chip. I'm about 75%, which isn't great. I need to keep healthy here. I Ice Beam, so we're getting Helios down to 70, which is nice, but I can't stay in, unfortunately. We go into Still Valley. He goes for Hyper Voice, which is a good call. I think he probably wasn't 100% sure that it was Still Valley Ground, but I mean, it's pretty obvious that since Flygon's not there, I'm going to have something to deal with Heliolisk, so I think it was a good play on his end, going for the Hyper Voice. I'm going to go back out into Age Slash, see if he does it again, but he Surfs. Not the worst thing in the world. Because I'm faster there, if I click Close Combat, because I know, since he switched moves up, I know he's not Scarfed, so I'm faster than him. I'm going to click Close Combat. It's possible he goes into Gengar, which sucks, yeah. That's probably his best play, honestly, but I wanted to kill that Helios, so I clicked Close Combat, just see what damage I could get off. He ended up going Gastrodon, which is good. So I Close Combat. Now, it does a lot of damage, but I'm worried that he might have switched into Gengar, expecting I was Scarfed. He ends up staying in, so honestly, the best play there would have been to Close Combat again. But I didn't want to give Gengar a free switch, because if Gengar comes in, then I'm having to sack something, most likely. Especially if he G-maxes, so I had to play carefully and try and position what I wanted to fight the Gengar. So I end up going back into Vaporeon, and he Scalds, I get back up to full. I'm going to just Yawn again. Basically, every time I see this Gastrodon, I want to be yawning. It's going to force it out. It's going to, if he switches, it's going to put that to sleep. So it's letting me get momentum, just either putting or threatening to put this Gastrodon to sleep every time I see it. So he recovered, which is a good play by him because keeping his Gastrodon healthy is his best Cinderace answer. So it's a good play by him, but I'm going to Wish here. Lets me get my Still Valley back up. He Air Slashes and I go pretty low, but Vaporeon's Wish comes in and gets me back to 80. I Ice Fang to see how much this is going to do. And that's about 30, which isn't great, honestly. He's going to Grass Knot, which gets me down to 10. So I'm going to U-turn out. I want to keep Still Valley around just to take a Thunderbolt. Worst comes to worst. And a Dazzling Gleam. So it's good for him that he's keeping the moves different and not letting me get easy switches. But Cinderace was pretty safe unless he Thunder Waved. If he Thunder Waved, that would have been not great, honestly. But there wasn't much Togekiss does that scares the Cinderace other than the Thunder Wave. It gets Ancient Power, but I didn't figure he'd bring it in all likelihood. So we switch into Cinderace. Now here, once I'm in this position, I just want to click Pyro Ball. I have Sucker Punch, but that's not going to be doing much to Gastrodon. And with it, it's 70. I want to figure out if it is defensive or special defensive, but he ends up switching into Lucario, which I was surprised by. The Pyro Ball connects and it one-shots him. So that's the first kill of the battle. Lucario's out of the way, which makes things a lot easier on Crustle. Now, Crustle probably becomes my best Grimmsnarl answer. Unless he brought, like, I guess not even Drain Punch. He doesn't have a great way to deal with Crustle, I should say. Special attackers, yes. But Crustle can wall the Grimmsnarl fairly well. But Gastrodon is back out in front of the Cinderace, and I don't want to fight it at this health, so I'm just going to U-turn. Back into Vaporeon. And he predicts it, goes for the recover. Not the end of the world, we're just going to Yawn again. Another Earth Power does 18%, and then Leftovers heals me up a bit. I'm going to Ice Beam because I figure he's going to switch again. Or sorry, Wish. Because everything's starting to get a little chipped down, Wish is important here. And I needed to predict a switch. I figured he would Thunderbolt, or I'm sorry, Surf, because he would figure I'm going into Still Valley. He ends up thunderbolting. I see that it does 55, and like I said earlier, we knew it wasn't scarfed or specs or anything like that, so not sure what its item could be. It might be like a fighting resist berry or something like that, but not sure at this point. So the Thunderbolt did a lot of damage, but the Wish comes in and heals me back up, so I actually come out ahead there. I stay very healthy, and I get more chip on it with the Ice Beam. So he Volt switches out. I stayed in one more time in case he's over-predicting, but no. So we get a little more damage on Gashadon. We just yawn again. He can Earth Power all he likes. He's not doing much. So we're going to do another Wish here. Grass Knot does a chunk, but 20% isn't going to be enough, especially with the Wish coming in later. So we Ice Beam and get Togekiss down to 30, and the Wish heals me back up to 80 in conjunction with Leftovers, and he has to switch once again. Ice Beam does some more chip to this Gastrodon, and we're going to yawn, or I'm sorry, we Wish first, and then we're going to yawn to try and get something else in, but with the special defense drop, I kind of just have to stay and let the Wish heal me back up. So, he stays in, which I was very surprised by. Had he gone for another Earth Power there, it probably kills my Cinderace. I had figured, since the interaction had been playing out a few times, I had been trying to see what he liked to switch into whenever he had to get out. And it was either the Heliolisk or the Togekiss every time. And my Cinderace can deal with either of those. They're both pretty low, so a lot of damage from a Pyro Ball is going to kill either one of them. But he ends up letting Gastrodon go to sleep, which I was surprised by, because Gastrodon's pretty important. I just start clicking Pyro Ball, see what I can do. It doesn't do much, so I U-turn out into Grimmsnarl, and I was hoping it didn't wake up, because if I took a Scald there, that'd be pretty bad. It doesn't wake up though, so we're looking pretty good, and I Power Whip. I wasn't sure if he wanted to switch. If you went into the Heliolisk, I think it dies. The Togekiss not quite, but then a Sucker Punch finishes it off. So I Power Whip. He has a Rindo Berry, but at 50% it doesn't matter. He's gonna die. So we get a clean kill. Now here, I think because he brought in the Grimmsnarl, it's meant to deal with mine, so it kind of shows he's probably max speed. And he's probably going to Spirit Break or Play Rough me, so I want to Dynamax to make sure I don't get one-shot unless it's Choice Banded. And I'm just going to click a Fairy move here, but he starts substituting, so honestly, it's not great that I blew my G-Max, but it's not the worst thing in the world because it's going to get Grimmsnarl down so low that I don't have to worry about it. So it works out. He's basically trading his Grimmsnarl for mine, which he comes out slightly ahead in, but Grimmsnarl was one of the bigger threats to my team, so I'm okay with doing it. I still have other ways to deal with Gengar, so it's not the end of the world for me. But it's a good call on his end. With Misty Terrain Spirit Break, he one-shots me. We go back into Cinderace. A half-health Grimmsnarl doesn't live a Pyro Ball, and Sucker Punch doesn't do enough. Had he been Choice Banded, which I thought he might have been, the Spirit Break wouldn't have killed me either. And if he was not Choice Banded, the Sucker Punch doesn't do enough to kill me, because we saw he's not Life Orb. About the only thing that would scare me would be like an Expert Belt, but then Sucker Punch isn't super effective, so I felt confident I could live. We Pyro Ball, Grimmsnarl goes down. Gengar comes out and G-Maxes. I just want to U-turn, because I figured I was faster unless he's Scarfed. And if he is Scarfed, then he's not Gigantamaxing, and he's locking himself into a move. Which means that Aegislash can probably come in pretty freely, or Vaporeon, or basically something could have come in based on what move he used. So I just want to U-turn and kind of scout. He's not Scarfed, or if he is, he just G-Maxes, so. We go into Vaporeon, see what he wants to do. G-Max Terror, okay. At this point, Gastrodon is dead, which is the biggest thing I needed Vaporeon for, so I was okay letting it get whittled down more now. Terror means I can't switch out, so I'm stuck here. He carries Giga Drain. It might have been Energy Ball, but it was a grass move. It was unexpected. I figured he was going to use Max Lightning, if anything. But that makes more sense, because if I did bring Silvally Ground, it was a good answer. So, something I hadn't considered. But I went for a Yawn here, just to try and force him to switch out early on the G-Max. And if he doesn't, it goes to sleep, and I can come in, possibly set up with Silvally. So I wanted to see what he did. I was okay letting Vaporeon go down because it's not like I can switch anyways. He ends up going into Heliolisk, and I Ice Beamed, and I get him down to 9%. Now, the problem here is that I take a... I can't take a Thunderbolt or a Hyper Voice, so I have to pick what I think he's going to use. I ended up predicting a Thunderbolt, and I switch into Silvally Ground, but he ends up Hyper Voicing, which was probably the safer call, on his end at least. So Silvally goes down, which isn't the end of the world. Cinderace comes out. Now here, in battle, this turn, I don't know, probably took like a minute. It felt like it was a while in my head, and I was considering, at this point I had to look at what is my win condition. Gengar's not G-maxed, or it doesn't have it, but it's still full health. Togekiss is low, and Heliolisk is low. I felt Cinderace was my best win condition, and most of the time when I was thinking of all this, I had U-turn selected, but at the last minute I changed to Pyro Ball. Now after the game I went and looked at the calculator. U-turn does 40 to 50 to Heliolisk, and I didn't check how much it does to Togekiss, but it does it kills the Heliolisk, and I know he's not Scarf. So U-turn was the correct play. I ended up Pyro Balling, and it missed, which was pretty bad. Now he Volt switched. Probably was expecting to die there and just wanted to do something just in case, but it worked out for him. He goes into Togekiss, so now I have 3 things to work with. I have an Aegislash that's at 70, a Vaporeon that's about 40, and a full health Crustle with Sturdy still. So, based on what he sent in here, I had to play it differently. If it was anything but the Gengar, I go into Aegislash, because I know I outspeed both of these. If it's the Gengar, I have to go into Vaporeon, hope I take a Giga Drain, hit it with something. Just a Scald or an Ice Beam, get chip damage, and then Aegislash kills it with a Shadow Claw after that. Worst case scenario, it dies to Giga Drain, Crustle comes in with Sturdy and knocks off. So his best play here, I think, is going into Gengar, but he went into Togekiss, so that I just go Aegislash every time, and Iron Head. He stays in. At this point, I hadn't used Aegislash extensively, and I think I only caught him on the switch with a couple moves, so he wasn't really sure if I was Scarf or what at this point. So he stays in with the Togekiss, and I'm faster. I get the Iron Head off. Now, it is possible that if he's not max speed, that I outsped him there, but I don't know his set. It's likely he was max speed, and it probably should have told him. He goes into Heliolisk, though, and just sacks it with the Iron Head. It's a tricky situation on his end, because you go into the Gengar, yes, you kill the Aegislash, but it's going to do so much that the Crustle just comes in and knock off and wins the game from there. So once he didn't lead the Gengar, I think it was locked that it was going to be a win for me. I just had to play it correctly. So the Gengar comes out. I didn't want to sack Aegislash. I wanted to see if I could live something with Vaporeon, and I do. About 20%, but the Giga Drain finishes me off. And from there, I go into Crustle. I've got the Sturdy up, and I knock off. We get rid of his Black Sludge, almost one-shot him, and it gets disabled, which honestly, that kind of sucks because I could have just knocked off again. I gotta go for Rock Slide now, which isn't super accurate. So I Rock Slide. He gets a crit on the Giga Drain, which was kind of spooky, but the Rock Slide did like 40%, so as long as I hit, I was good. So we ended up getting a 2-0. Not perfect by any means, and I think the Pyro Ball was a mistake that I should have U-turned. The only other thing I probably could have played better was the predictions on the Heliolisk. It was tough calling between switching into Aegislash or Silvally there, but I think it was played well from both of us. He had a tricky time dealing with that Vaporeon, and once it got down to those last 3, it was a tough situation for him to try and come out and win, but like I said, well played by both of us, and good game to my opponent.